Lee Drutman, Breaking the Two-Party Doom Loop, The Case for Multiparty Democracy in America. Step into the enthralling world of Breaking the Two-Party Doom Loop, The Case for Multiparty Democracy in America, by Lee Drutman, where the book dissects the consequences of the ongoing political divide in the United States. A divided America, poisoned by uncompromising and entrenched two-party system, echoes the need for a stable and flourishing multi-party environment. Inspired by other functional multi-party systems across the world, Drutman explores how America can move towards a more inclusive and solution-oriented approach to governance. Dive into the rich history of America's political landscape and learn how we can heal the divide and inject much-needed civility into the political system.
American Politics, a Flawed Democracy. America has been downgraded to a flawed democracy due to its political failings, with both parties claiming to be the only solution to the nation's problems. The winner-takes-all mentality fueled by this toxic partisanship is damaging the political environment. In the past, the two-party system allowed for a certain level of compromise, but this is no longer the case. Dissenters are now seen as enemies to be defeated. The answer to this problem is a multi-party system, as is evident in most other countries, which could help resolve America's current partisanship and divisiveness. The four-party system. From the mid-1950s to the mid-1990s, the American political system technically consisted of two parties. In reality, however, there were four parties: liberal Democrats and Republicans in urban areas, and conservative Democrats and Republicans in rural and southern areas. Compromise was necessary in this system to pass major legislation, but it began to disappear in the mid-1990s. The rise of the Tea Party marked the end of legislative compromise, and now America's two-party system is fully resistant to any stance aside from tribal warfare. Instead of blaming specific individuals, the issue lies within the institutions themselves. Changing these institutions can help American democracy function more effectively. The role of parties in a thriving democracy. In the 1950s, the American political landscape was described as a bipartisan love match. Both parties courted Dwight D. Eisenhower as their candidate for the presidency, but he ultimately ran as a Republican and governed as a centrist. Mid-century political scientists worried about too much compromise and too little disagreement between the parties. They believed that a thriving democracy required spirited debate and strong disagreements, an argument that remains valid today. Voters need a meaningful choice between two opposing parties to avoid a bland and meaningless distinction. Without some organizing force, political debate and discussion would be impossible, and a system with no dissent is a dictatorship. Parties play a crucial role in a mass democracy to ensure a healthy and vibrant democracy. The rise of two-party democracy. Obama's vision of a bipartisan America was crushed by the GOP's strategy of obstructing all his policies. They vilified the Democratic agenda and portrayed his plan for healthcare as a socialist takeover. The result was a victory for the Republicans in 2010, where they took control of Congress and cemented a two-party democracy. Liberal Republicans vanished, and conservative Democrats were defeated in the midterm elections. This resulted in Washington becoming fertile ground for political theatrics, such as the 16-day stalemate staged by Senator Cruz over the federal budget. The 2014 midterm elections saw personal attacks exchanged between the two parties, with voter turnout hitting a low of 36%. The closely knit coalition that once defined the Blue Dog Democrats was wiped out, leading to the final death of the unofficial four-party system. The rise of Republican Nativism. The book details how the Republican Party, particularly the Tea Party, adopted nativist themes in the 2010s, targeting immigrants and framing healthcare as a referendum on whether tax dollars should go to newcomers. After Mitt Romney's loss in the 2012 presidential election, the party realized it was alienating younger voters and minorities, but instead of inclusiveness, they got Donald Trump in 2015. Trump validated white Americans' anxieties about America's culture and diversity, and his appeals to nativism and flirtations with racists helped him win the presidency. RCV, a more civil approach to elections. RCV or ranked choice voting allows voters to select multiple candidates in their order of preference while ensuring that the most popular candidate wins. This system has been successful in Maine, Australia, and even in the Academy Awards. RCV draws in a deeper pool of candidates and encourages a more civil approach to campaigning. With the fear of spoilers gone, voters can express their genuine preference. San Francisco and Minneapolis have used RCV in municipal elections, and it has also spurred turnout by letting voters know their ballots matter. This system also produces less polarizing choices since divisive candidates cannot win. RCV ensures that candidates have incentives to be nice to each other and compete to be the voter's second and third choice. The system is not as confusing as skeptics suggest. In conclusion, RCV could be the answer to more civil elections where all voters can express their honest opinion without fear or bias. A larger House and Senate reform. The book argues that increasing the number of seats in the U.S. House of Representatives to 700, and implementing a reverse filibuster in the Senate, where legislation needs 60% support from the House, would lead to a fairer and more representative government. The current structure of the U.S. legislative branch has led to a significant disparity in representation among American citizens. While each House member represents around 750,000 Americans, members of the legislative branches in Britain and Germany only represent about 100,000 voters. This significant disparity, according to the book, could be remedied by expanding the number of seats in the U.S. House of Representatives to 700. A larger House would create a closer connection between members of Congress and their constituents and reduce inequality. The U.S. Senate also faces proportionate representation issues. Each state receives 2 Senate seats regardless of population size. This means that less populous states receive equal say in legislation as heavily populated states. Implementing a reverse filibuster could address this issue. The Senate would only pass legislation that received 60% support from the House, which would help balance the voting power between the more and less populated states and create a fairer government. Primaries sabotage American democracy. The use of primaries in U.S. congressional races has skewed American democracy towards extremism, hampering voter participation. The tradition of parties picking candidates behind closed doors originally led to the current system of primaries. However, the most engaged and partisan voters show up, and the two-party system dominates. This has left no air for any potential third-party challenges and undermined political diversity. Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez plays the spoiler in the Democratic Party because there is no viable option in American politics. Therefore, the primaries perpetually battle for the soul of the party, creating a less democratic system. The Electoral College, a tool of distortion. The Electoral College, created to filter the selection of the president by the framers of the U.S. Constitution, has become a source of distortion in presidential elections. This system has given an outsized influence to swing states and small states with Republican majorities. The fact that twice in recent years, a candidate who failed to get a majority of the popular vote was elected as president has raised debates on the legitimacy of the Electoral College. With the current environment of toxic politics and the unlikelihood of having a constitutional amendment, Americans can only hope that more states commit to the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact to reform the system. The benefits of multiparty democracy. Multiparty democracy promotes inclusivity, compromise, and coalition building. Unlike the two-party system that amplifies the influence of money and generates feelings of disenfranchisement, a multiparty system creates a sense of legitimacy and inclusion. Through a formal channel for hardline parties to air their grievances, multiparty democracy works as a release valve for extremism. Most developed nations have multiparty systems, with higher voter turnout and a sense of playing an active role in the process. In contrast, America's two-party system breeds dysfunction, corruption, and apathy, with low voter turnout and uncompetitive House elections. Multiparty democracy's most apparent benefit is capturing the range of opinion in a diverse country like America. With these benefits, it is evident that most Americans want a multi-party system to counter the political toxicity underlying the two-party system.
Drutman's Breaking the Two-Party Doom Loop masterfully illuminates the shortcomings of America's divided political landscape, as it exposes the urgent need for adopting a more inclusive, multi-party system. The book highlights the detrimental effects of a winner-takes-all, two-party system on the public discourse while offering alternative approaches, like ranked choice voting to open the door for a functional multi-party democracy. By adopting successful practices from other multi-party systems across the world, America can rejuvenate its political structure, encourage legislative compromise, and foster a more civil, constructive environment. This deep dive into American politics will leave you with a refreshed perspective on the possibilities for change and the enduring power of democracy.